Hello, and thank you for joining. The world has become a smaller place. We're bringing people together from different corners. I have a special guest, Paige Hanson, who I will introduce briefly or momentarily. Thank you, Paige, for joining us. This has been a fantastic journey for myself, and bringing professionals who are like-minded and fit into my journey and my crusade to improve the customer experience. It's so great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Before we go any further, the chat is live. If you're joining us on LinkedIn, feel free jump on the chat and share where you're joining us from, and we'd love to hear any questions. And why don't we start with a quick introduction? So, Paige Hanson, welcome. Paige is the founder of Secure Labs, and I'll let her go into a little more detail. But Secure Labs is helping businesses putting security, privacy, operations into place. Over to you. Why don't you share a little bit about who you are, the community you serve, and because I probably won't do as much justice as you could.
Well, I thought it was a great intro. Yes, my background, I have about 2 decades of experience in the identity management cybersecurity world. Similar to other folks, you kind of accidentally get into cybersecurity, but I've loved the journey and the ability to connect with consumers, law enforcement, businesses on not only just how to protect themselves as consumers, but to make their business more safe. Because in the end of the day, if the business is safe and secure, proactively protecting the data and the personal information they have, then in turn, consumers are more secure.
Fantastic. And you know, a lot of people ask me, Americo, you're not a techie, so what are you doing spending time with the tech community? And well, let me share myself. I'm a customer experience coach, and essentially, I'm here to help businesses and professionals refine their customer journey so that they can quote more, sell more, and retain more clients. And what a lot of my professional colleagues uh, do really well is talk about the customer journey. What I'd like to supplement those conversations with are the different silos that we hear about in big enterprises that really don't speak to one another and create vulnerabilities that put the customer or impact the customer. So I try to bring a logic into all those silos and show appreciation for all the hard work that everyone does collectively, but try to bring it together with a customer centric uh, mindset.
It makes sense. I mean, it does take a team and you have to all work together, especially when people have their areas of expertise. So I love what you're doing.
Fantastic. So we have a couple of people joining us. Dominic, can't wait to see the insights from this live. All right, so stay tuned, stick around. We're going to be here for a while, and hope we answer any questions and hope you get the insights that you'd like. I keep looking over to the left because I got three monitors going, so don't mind me. I'm not being distracted. I'm just trying to
You've
multitask.
got a whole operation over there. I totally get
Uh,
it.
Anna, hello, Anna. Anna's a good friend. She actually participated in my live debut. She was my first interview. And Anna is the founder of Cox Accounting, and loves talking about fraud, loves talking about forensic accounting. So if you don't know or you're not following, be sure to reach out and connect with her.
I'm a follower. I'm a big, big fan. So
Fantastic. Leticia
agreed.
also joining from big state of Texas. Welcome. Thank you for joining. Uh, why don't we start with a little bit of storytelling? So, I'm going to put my customer hat on and share a real live example that happened to me. So, for many years in my corporate life, I had the opportunity for some projects to travel, and as such, I would participate in different programs. I I really, you got your air miles and you got your points that you collect for flights and so forth. but I joined the program with the airport parking um, authority. Uh, I felt it was the right thing to do because it allowed me to check in. They knew who I was. They knew when I was coming in. They knew when I was flying out, and it just made sense. I understood the marketing side of it. Yes, I'm going to be put on an email list. I'm going to get promotional emails probably that aren't timed with my travel. But hey, that goes part and parcel with it. I get it. I I'm looking at this from a speed and convenience perspective. So I joined this loyalty program in hopes that, some of my personal trips would someday be comped through the accumulation of travel. But instead, what happens? I receive a notification. Hey, Mr. Da Costa, it's come to our attention that we've been infiltrated, or however they worded it, due to a security threat. Our system has been exposed, and some of your private and personal information may have been shared. Um, we're doing everything possible to ensure that information is protected going forward. Here are the steps we're taking. And when I reached out to them and asked the question, they try to kind of brush it off and say, well, payment, no payment information was collected. We got hacked through our loyalty program. So there's really nothing to be too concerned about. Really, as a consumer, I'm pretty concerned because you now have my name, you have my address, you have my year, make, and model of vehicle, you have my license plate. There's enough information to do harm with that. But more importantly, I'm living in a city that averages a stolen vehicle every 40 minutes. So now there's a list of vehicles, year, make, and model, addresses where they can be picked up, and no one sees this. That it just got swept under the rug. Oh, not to worry, payment information wasn't collected, so you should be fine. I'm a little torn by how it was addressed, but these are realities. These are vulnerabilities that consumers and companies face, aren't they?
They are. It seems like there could be some training on their end, some sensitivity training, some coaching around delivering this message and empathizing with people, because that's the biggest thing. It doesn't matter if you yourself think it's a big deal on the other side of that phone call, but when a victim of identity theft, a cybercrime, a data breach is expressing their concerns or they're feeling vulnerable, you have to acknowledge, first of all, I am so sorry this happened to you. So I am sorry this happened to you. Not to mention, in when it comes to the data that you said was compromised, you almost wish it was your payment information, because you know how easy it is to switch a credit card number.
Yeah,
You're not moving anytime soon. You're probably not getting new car anytime soon. Those things are almost permanent credentials that now have been compromised. So yeah, let's acknowledge the training part. So if you're in a position of leadership where you do have a breach, and the talking points need to include some empathy and some training around that and how to deliver that message.
excellent. Yeah, I, I know that a lot of people try to, I guess, make light of the situation. Oh, this happens all the time. That's another thing you hear all the time is, you know, organizations being thrown under the bus. Oh, this happens all the time. It's like,
Yeah,
really? Is that what customers really want to hear? Despite the fact that it is happening all the time, is
right,
it something you want to broadcast?
right. Yeah, it's back to that acknowledgement, and I'm having the same conversation recently with my girlfriends when people are just like, oh, um, well, at least it wasn't this, at least it wasn't that, and it's like, no, 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 let's let's pause and acknowledge. But not to mention, if we're thinking from this authentication standpoint, not to put salt in your wound over here, Americo, but think about when you authenticate yourself, when you call into a place you do business with, they might ask you, verify your address in order for you to have access to this account.
Mhm.
Verify your name, the last four digits of your social security number. We've all got, or your birth date. All of this, with probably the exception of your social security number or identifying number, is likely part of the breach, which then gives criminals the data and the information that they need to authenticate that they are you. So it is a big deal.
It's a huge deal. And I try to bring this to light with organizations when it comes to, you know, a business continuity. It's like, what do we have in place? So
Mhm.
as a customer, I get this email or this written correspondence saying, you know, we've been victims of a breach. Here's what's been impacted. Here's what information may have been acquired. And you know, as a customer, I now lose faith and trust. And you know, when it comes to making purchasing decisions or loyalty decisions, you want to stick around with brands that you like, know, and trust. I can no longer trust this organization, not only because there was a breach, but how they handled the breach. Like if
Right.
they were able to redeem themselves and you know understand that from a severity perspective, I know there's different levels of severity for breaches, but for a customer, they don't look at it in terms of severity. They look at it in terms of being victimized,
Exactly.
right?
Well, and to your point about the business itself, the reputation harm and damage is something that only over time you're going to build back. You're going to lose, like you said, your loyalty, your customer that are loyal and look to a partner that protects their data and at least or handles the conversation better. And so 100% when you're looking at your business continuity planning or your within that maybe an incident response plan, these are the sort of things that have to be tested over and over again with different scenarios. So then it's not all hands on deck. We're all flying with our heads cut off, trying to figure out how do we communicate to our partners? How do we communicate to our customers? How do we communicate to, XYZ down the line? Because it all needs to be very thoughtful. Because if it's not handled properly, like in your case, wasn't handled properly, it doesn't feel great. The loyalty is not there. And then you lose a percentage of the marketplace.
Absolutely. I do have a few questions queued up for our conversation,
Mhm.
but before we jump into those, I, I just popped into my head in terms of AI and this whole AI hype. How much or how more vulnerable are we as consumers now that we're engaging with more AI, and how are companies preparing themselves? Do we even know? Could we trust that dealing with a bot, what we're sharing, I'm sure it's being recorded and coded somewhere, and is that a new layer of data that's being available for people to steal?
Yes. So when we're talking about just overall how AI has changed the landscape as far as a scam perspective, exponentially. Because a I don't know, we used to say, I've been, doing this for years, look for misspellings, look for punctuation, different way, very vague, those sort of things, while they might still be happening, out the window. Because now I have the ability to have AI. I can scrape your LinkedIn. I can scrape the latest data breaches. I know how you talk. I know how you communicate. I know where you work and who personal wise, what your kids do. All of this information I'm using if I'm an AI, if I'm using AI to assist me with these scams. Now I have the ability to personalize these attacks. So from a consumer standpoint, now there are personalized attacks that seem very believable. So then when you, let's say, are interacting, let's say, with a legitimate website and you're on your, who wants to talk to somebody? So they're saying, oh, I'll do the chat. You have to believe that the majority of the time, with maybe the exception of a handful, you are going to be talking to a bot. That first level is going to be
Mhm.
a bot, maybe even the second level. Because as the AI advances, their algorithms and the ability to answer questions and interact with humans becomes easier and is going to be incorporated into the customer journey. So, providing information like social security number, identifying information, date of birth, and so on, you really should verify, then trust that this is the right one website they're using. But also, that's where corporations need to have segmented and encrypted ways to verify people's information. I'll use the example. I used to have my corporate Amex, and in order to verify my information, I had to go to, it was a separate encrypted, maybe you've had this experience, encrypted uh, chat conversation, I authenticated myself and I went back to the original conversation. So it was we can't just be willy-nilly just giving out your information to a chatbot.
Yeah, it's incredible how far we've come, and still we're as exposed. Now with
Exactly.
two-factor authentication, every time I log into any platform, I got to go through multiple devices. I got to go to my cell phone. I got to enter a six-digit code that's sent from a third party, and then I use my biometric fingerprint. It's it's a huge ordeal just to log into our personal space.
Yeah. But wouldn't you agree that it's necessary?
It's
Because with
sure
the number of data breaches and the reality of us reusing passwords is probably pretty high, you get one data breach. Let's say, for example, the parking that you likely a username and password was compromised. If you're using that same username and password to another site, but you don't have a secondary way to authenticate yourself, which would be two-factor authentication, well, then you're essentially just keeping why do you even have a password to begin with? That's a little extreme, but it you almost need these extreme comments because that's ends up it's being. So it should be something you know, which is your password, then something you have. I have a device. I have a YubiKey, or I have, uh, I am, which is my fingerprint or my face. Those are things that are harder to replicate and harder to compromise when you have that layer of authentication.
excellent. So I'm on the right track.
You
And
are. You are.
let,
Well, and let me just say this. A theme here is convenience versus security. Is it super convenient to your device is maybe charging downstairs or somewhere else in your home, or you're trying to do something on your phone, but you have all your passwords on your synced up on your computer? There's all these scenarios. It's not super convenient, but the more convenient you make for yourself, the easier and more convenient it is for fraudsters. So we have to think about convenience and security often don't play in that same sandbox. So it's okay. It takes an extra step, an extra second. You're going to be more secure.
so and it jumps into the chat and shares. Now, I'm not familiar with this acronym. BEC scams are basically perfect email now.
Yeah, so
Emails now.
that's business email compromise. So, business email compromise is a technique of phishing emails that are targeting usually businesses. This is also called whaling, CEO fraud, where they're pretending to be. Let's do a scenario. Maybe you had an assistant or a team that's reporting into you. You're on the road. You've posted on LinkedIn that says, "Oh, I'm traveling to so and so. I'm going to do a presentation. I'm so excited." You and your coffee cup on an airplane. Cool. But now you're exposing to the world that you are not in the location where you normally are. So I can easily then say, hey, pretend I'm Americo and I'm texting the rest of the company that says, hey, I need a gift card. I'm doing a really great presentation. I thought she did a great job. I'm going to send her, $100 gift card. Send me that, but send me the numbers because I want to be able to give that. It sounds super believable in this whole scenario because they're traveling, it matches that you're going to do a presentation, whatever the scenario will be, insert a similar scenario. And that is going to be a little bit more believable because you're targeting, usually it's CEO level or somebody within a business.
So that's, we were talking backstage on my frustrations with our friends at Meta. And I think this sounds similar or along the same lines of phishing. So I learned yesterday or over the last couple of days that paying to boost my presence on the Meta platform has rewarded me with an abundance of phishing requests. So to your point, people know that I'm who I am, where I'm showing up,
Yep.
and what I'm trying to build here. And I get last count was 9 people engaging in the conversation, saying that they're from Meta, and that I have my ad has violated the terms and conditions and the agreement, the user agreement, and that my accounts will be canceled unless I click the following link and put together a case that represents why the ad that I'm boosting is in fact legitimate and aligned.
Fear-based message works
Yep.
about every time, aligned with what you're doing.
Yep.
You are working with Meta. And so that is very good one that you're bringing this to light and you're sharing this because people need to hear this in other angles and contexts of how you might receive a phishing email. Even if your phishing email didn't have a link in it, it still would be it's unexpected. It's a fear-based message. It just the email address probably is a weird meta address that you've never seen. So it's important to be talking about this because scammers go to where the money is and they're going to do what works. Do you know what works? Fear-based messages off of boost posts. It aligns completely.
Oh well, why don't we jump into the questions,
Yeah.
and I'm sure more will pop up. Let's start off with, you know, what do you do when you receive a data breach notification stating that your personal information was compromised? So,
Yeah. Let's first start with one, you should care. We might all have data breach fatigue. Let's acknowledge that. We get data breach here. It's this million of people, this billion of people, but it matters. Your personal information matters. It's your personal information. And if we go, what we previously talked about, which is this personal information is being used to authenticate your identity. So if you think about an identity theft victim, and somebody, let's say, were to use this breached information to, let's say, create a new line of credit or pretend that they were you have as a victim, you're guilty and you have to prove yourself innocent because somebody at one time had enough information about you to be able to pretend that they're that they are you, in fact. So these data breach notifications are super important to one, read it, see what was compromised, and then go ahead and see what they're offering. A lot of the companies will offer you 1 year of identity theft protection, steps to help remediate your identity. Maybe they'll recommend a credit freeze or a fraud alert. You want to look at that letter and sign up for, I personally just sign up for every service that they offer because it doesn't hurt, right? But first, you do need to verify that it's an actual data breach because you would hate for that to be a phishing letter where they're getting you to sign up and go to a website that isn't legit. So after you verify that in fact it was a data breach, then you can go ahead and sign up for that personal information and have your guard up. Continue to have your guard up that your personal information was just exposed.
well, did you just at the end there suggest that even notifications of data breaches could be fake?
Yes. Yes.
Oh man.
They're hitting you on, text, calls, emails, now even postal mail. Postal mail used to be kind of the holy grail of saying, like, if it comes via postal mail, then it should be fine. But now they're investing in postal mail because they know that that's usually our single source of truth of things that you'll get the nasty grams of, I don't know, your HOA fines are due or the IRS is after you. Yeah, no, they certainly will target postal mail. Not as a higher rate as the other because it does cost money, but they certainly will.
Now you bring up a good point. There's seasonality around certain fraud activity. We're now knee deep in tax season, and I'm posting about the whole customer experience during tax season. But I've been in positions where one of my direct reports, and we're going back a few years, calls me from the train station saying, I can't come into work. I got to turn back. I got the CRA or the equivalent of the IRS or the Canada Revenue Agency up here. But I got them on the phone, and my Pierce, my husband, forgot to put something on one of the lines on the forms, and they're going to come and seize the house if I don't pay this. So I got to take care of this. Like, hold on a second.
Yeah, pause.
Pause.
Yes.
You're at the train station. Do not get off the train and do not give anyone any money. The government does not call to harass or fearmonger
No,
any of its citizens and demand payment on the spot. It just doesn't happen.
it does
And
not
but
happen.
she was so convinced that because she knew and understood her husband and his traits and his behaviors. Yeah, it sounds like something he would do or something he would forget. And she just got sucked into it and was prepared to pay and give a credit card over the phone so that nothing would be possessed. And I said, no, just come into work. Don't worry. It's a scam.
Yeah, it seems so real though. So even talking people off quote unquote ledge of, whether they're going to make a payment or turn back around on the train or go to the store and get a gift card. That's even hard because they truly believe that it is the IRS calling or the CRA calling. But just to note that these organizations will never call you. They will not text you, email you, and they will certainly not be banging on your door and they're going to drag you in front of your children and arrest you. It just seems, just saying it out loud, it seems like, oh, that just seems excessive and something not true. But when you're in it to the point of your former employee, you think it's true. And so
Yeah,
you do whatever
absolutely.
it takes.
Absolutely. And it becomes so convincing.
Yeah.
Sometimes you pick up the phone and it's like, all right, you already know what's coming. But
Right.
there are other times you're left scratching your head,
Yeah.
and whether or not it's like, all right, this sounds legitimate. Like,
Well,
should
you brought up a good point. That means you have to answer your phone. You just do this whole thing where you don't answer your phone and then, try to get me now. I joke.
yeah, well, it's true. Uh, we still have a home line because I still have generations. Mom and dad still rely on this whole
Ah,
landline service, but I'm paying for telemarketers and scammers to pop in whenever they feel like. And, and I know it's as generations evolve, landlines will be a thing of the past. But hey, it's alive. Scamming is alive and well on our mobile devices. Let's not kid ourselves.
yeah, that's very true.
All right, so if there are any questions or anyone would like to join up on stage and ask Paige a question, feel free. I'm going to drop the stage link in the chat. Feel free to join us. We're going to move on to our next question. All right. What if you logged into your bank account and found that your balance was at zero? Let me tell you, this has happened to me during the holiday season, and
Oh, wow.
it was I was beside myself. I was at a point of sale at a machine trying to pay for my purchase, and it got declined. And of course, my first instinct was, all right, what did she buy? What did she overspend on? And moments later, the phone's ringing. It's like, all right, what did you do? Did you freeze the accounts? Like, no, I haven't done anything. Like, so my wife at the time was unable to make a purchase. I was unable to make a purchase. Our purchases were being declined. We logged into online banking, and there looked us straight in the eyes, a bunch of zeros.
Oh,
It's like, oh my God, the banks are closed. And it's like, what do you do?
well, I will say that weekends are the perfect time when fraudsters usually take advantage of compromised debit cards and credit cards because of the fact that there's a chance that you won't have access to your banking or financial information until Monday, or at least talk to somebody at the bank. And so, one, if it is zero, wait, can we pause? Did
Yeah,
you end up getting your money back? You
I did
noticed
end up getting my money back. Yeah.
Good, good. Okay, good. One, if it's at zero and you notice it, you need to immediately report fraud. And there's many ways you can do this. A lot of apps and online, depending on your financial institution, but most of them will allow you to mark certain transactions fraudulent. And so that's going to start the process of identifying you as a potential fraud victim. You have 60 days to report the fraudulent activity. So it's important that you act right away. You don't want to just pay your bill or, you see that it's zero. You don't want to just, wait until Monday. You want to try to get online to your credit card company and mark it as fraud. But that also is a good reason to use a credit card versus a debit card. Your debit card, you still have all these bills. Like, for instance, you didn't have access to your bank accounts for a whole weekend. Versus if you use a credit card and let's say the fraudsters max out your credit card, well, you usually have other forms of financial institutions or payment that you can use in the meantime until they work out the fraudulent activity. So using a credit card versus a debit card allows just an extra layer of protection between you and your money. But if, to answer this question, if you found your bank account was zero, you're likely if you weren't expecting your bank account to be zero because you spent all your money, then you're likely a fraud victim and you have to report it right away.
Yeah, so it's a very good point. The whole credit card um, component, you know, for some of us, like personally myself, I'm going to speak for myself.
Okay.
If I can pay and get out of the way and try to avoid accumulating debt, I won't touch the credit card. But there's really nothing stopping me from using that credit card and then paying it off right away, and still giving me that layer of protection.
Yep.
But to focus in and zero in on credit cards specifically, how many of us would you say, and I'm sure there's a stat or a number or data to support the magnitude of the question I'm about to ask. How many people don't review their credit card statements and there's a little trickling fraud happening? Purchases rung in here and purchases rung in there, and there's small amounts, they're nominal amounts, and they just get blended into your balance and no one thinks of it.
It's true. That happens to a lot of people. For convenience and to avoid late fees, you're going to have what's called automatic payment. When you make that automatic payment and you set that up, you click this little box that says, I verify that all the purchases that I've made are actually mine. So when you automatically pay and there is potential and there is fraud on there, it's actually harder to get those charges reversed because you click that little box when you set up the automatic payment that said, yes, all of these charges are mine. So you're going to come back later and say, oh, no, they're not. So it is important to make that part of your habit. I know what day my credit card statement is due. 2 days before, I go and I look at every single charge. And so the 60-cent charges, the $1.10 charges, whatever it is, we flag those right away. But another thing you can do is most financial institutions allow, they're called account threshold notifications. They're usually in the account settings or the notification settings of your credit card, but you can get real-time alerts when a charge exceeds the threshold that you've set up. And what I like about this is that I've met people that have every single charge that goes on their credit card, they get a text message. Then I have people on the other side of the spectrum. If it's over $100, $500, and they set their own threshold. So it ends up being a really nice way to be able to stay on track, but it's to your comfort level. So you're not overwhelmed by the charges or the text message and notifications.
Yeah, that's great advice. In fact, advice that I'll probably look at as soon as we get off this call. I don't have any threshold set. What I do have, or what my online banking provides, is as a feature, because we live in a subscription world now. Everything, for you want to buy a streaming channel, you're paying a subscription. We're restreaming. I'm using the Restream platform. That's a subscription. Like all these software subscriptions and entertainment subscriptions, it's easy to lose track. And that's the one alert I have. It's like, hey, you may want to revisit your subscriptions just in the event you're no longer using.
Yes.
Right?
I've also seen that feature where they say your subscription went up 77 cents this
Yes.
month, and which is really great because that's where these companies, they try to, oh, we'll just up it 25, $75 cents, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, by the end of the year, you're paying, 25% more on all your subscriptions. And it's just because it went up $1 or $2 every day, every
Yeah.
month.
And to tie this back to fraud and cybersecurity,
Yeah.
I think it's important that if there's a service that you once acquired that you no longer have the use for, get rid of it,
Yes.
because it's one less exposure and one less place that your information can become vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right?
I will say on top of that, it's going to be an extra step. But if you do cancel a service, go into your account and delete your card that you have on file, because that is going to be, and if you can delete your account, a lot of state laws will allow you to uh, delete your entire account. That's actually probably the best. But if you can't, delete the personal information that you have in your account. So in the event of a breach, then your card isn't compromised, your address and so on, that they have on file, and you're limiting the information that could be exposed.
Excellent. Thank you. Leticia just dropped a question in the chat. Let me go back to the chat here. What are your thoughts on the nationwide tollway tech scam. Many fleets have been impacted, and some actually are responding. Any thoughts?
Yeah, my first thought is it is a scam. It is a fear-based message. Many places they don't even. I live in Arizona. There are zero tolls, so it's a scam though that is working because we are talking about it. People are falling for it every day. And so they're going to keep doing it. And there's going to be a little bit of iterations. The more exposure it gets via media or people talking about it, it'll start to say this, they'll reposition their language. It says, like, uh, you may not live in a state that has a toll, but your vehicle or your driver's license was used in with a toll. So it makes you think you're an identity theft victim or something was wrong. So they're going to change their message to be the most believable based off of what mainstream media and people are talking about. So it is important. And I'm a huge advocate of having these conversations, not just with us as professionals, but with your family members and friends. It is not that lame. I think it's a great topic of conversation when you're around the dinner table to talk about a couple scams that you received, because that's going to get the conversation going. Then they're going to tell a friend and so on, because awareness is key. You have to be aware. But just overall, my thoughts in general are it is a scam, but it's going to be out there and there'll be different versions out there because it's working for the fraudsters. They're getting millions of dollars because of this.
Yeah, here's my biggest disappointment. Uh, I'd say organizations not doing enough because it's their names very often that are being
Oh,
dragged, but because it's not hitting their financial statements, it appears that not enough attention is given to it.
well, and I think collectively, that's why we all have to work together. So, as consumers, as businesses, and I don't, if you're a national chain, you can still have a fraud warning on your front page or a landing page, or when it comes to the payment portion of, we will never ask for this. If you have a toll, it'll automatically be charged to your credit card per your agreement. There is language that you can use and incorporate that will give people a sense of security, or at least information that you are putting out there. So if you are freaking out thinking, "Oh, I have a toll with Enterprise," then I see that on their website that's a common scam, think about the number of people that would save from being compromised.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, and at the end of the day, if you have an account, if you have a one of those easy passes for tolls, you likely have an account. Just pick up the phone, call them, log in, check your account, and reconcile what the scam text is saying, and reconcile it to your account.
Excellent
Right?
advice. I couldn't agree more. And while you're at it, when you're logging in, make sure you have multi-factor authentication. If you're able to just get in with the username and password, now's a really good time to add that extra layer.
So Alice is also asking, and I'm not sure if they caught the AI portion of our chat earlier, but the question is there anything on cyber threats in relation to AI? Is there anything trending, anything that
Yeah, I mean, all the AI amplified attacks right now are really the biggest ones is they're more convincing phishing emails, or as Anna mentions in the comments, BEC, business email compromise. They're just different versions. There are also cases of AI chatbots. So we did talk a little bit about chatting, but it was more under the conversation around legitimate chatbots. But there are AI chatbot attacks where they're infiltrating a real chat and they're gathering and they're extracting all the information. Something we have to remember is that we might have tools in place, antivirus, scam detectors. There's websites out there like Norton Genie or Virus Total where you can click, you can submit a link, and the link allows you to determine whether or not it's a potential fraudulent website or not. But AI is advancing so fast and so quickly that some of these tools that we have in place to even protect us in the first place aren't catching it, because it's known attacks that are flagged. With AI, it makes it so it could go under the radar for a long time. So we have to verify, then trust. If it seems weird, out of the blue, with unexpected wording is weird, don't click on it, because that's exactly what they want you to do.
yeah, and it wasn't until now, as I prepared for this conversation, that I realized there are hundreds of companies data brokerages whose business is to scrape data and sell it. And in many cases, they sell it to the highest bidder. And when you're the highest bidder, you're not always a legitimate business, right?
Right.
So,
Exactly. That data is the biggest thing right now, especially if you're using it to train your AI model. You can just imagine what the data, depending on what it is and the skill set of the organization using it. I mean, it could be pretty convincing with their messaging or revealing, depending on how they're using the tool.
all right, we have another question here from Dominic. Uh, have you found any new AI cybersecurity tools, and do you think that AI security tools will be able to combat these AI-based attacks?
I don't have any off the top of my head that I have been working with or would recommend quite yet, but there are a lot of AI security tools, which are great, but you are only going to be able to combat what you know, what the model has been trained to do. So if it's outside of the scope of that, it's not going to catch it. So we have to, while I think they're great and they should be incorporated if appropriate for your organization, you can't just say, oh, this AI tool says this is a green light, it's okay. If it falls into the bucket of seems weird, seems off, they're asking me to do, download an attachment, something of that nature, you can't click on just everything because of it seems okay because of the tool said so.
Right. Good advice. It's I always tell customers and anyone who's willing to listen, when it comes to tech, simply spending the money or throwing money at a tech solution doesn't always give you the peace of mind or the result that you're looking for. It's
Yeah,
just
it depends on how you're using your tool.
right.
Yeah, I mean, that could be a whole side conversation, Americo. Exactly.
All right, let's move on to our next question. We have, all right, if a business were faced with a cyber incident today, how important is it to have cyber threat as part of your business continuity plan?
One of the favorite things of my role is I get to do incident response training with our customers. So our clients that we're helping them with their compliance is they use their incident response plan or their business continuity plan, and we walk them through an incident. Right now, the most popular one that I've been doing is a cyber incident that has happened to their organization. And that is the reality of what is probably going to happen. Of course, you might have other incidents that occur within your org, but a cyber incident is pretty likely. And so it's how you respond to that incident and how quickly, keyword there, quickly you respond in an appropriate way. So definitely in your BCP, you must have a cyber incident, but then you also have to, great. If you have a cyber incident response, great, but you have to test it, because if you're not testing it, then it's just a binder you got collecting dust, and then we don't even know where it is. It's an org and who's involved. So part of having that is also then testing it.
Yeah, and having a regular cadence, not just you
One and
create the
done.
process, right? You
Right.
create the
Right.
process
We're not
today, you
checking
file it
boxes.
away,
It's,
and then there's
yeah.
an audit of some sort, and a third party auditor comes in. It's like, when was the last time you checked this? It's like, oh,
Well, we were required the one time a year, so that's what we did it. No, I
right?
mean, if you could incorporate it every quarter or whatever the cadence is for your organization, then it's going to serve you well in the time when the time comes that there is an incident.
Absolutely. And can we talk a little bit about and stress the importance, because I hear this a lot. I'm just a small organization. They're probably looking for the big enterprises where all the money is, the larger enterprises. How wrong is that?
Well, according to the National Cybersecurity Awareness National Cybersecurity Alliance, 60% of small businesses do not recover after a cyber incident. So you tell me, is that a percentage or a stat that you're willing to play ball with?
Yeah, it's a huge gamble.
That is a huge gamble. And so entrepreneurs, especially small businesses, I know it is important for you to develop your product or your service or your website, whatever it is, gain customers, gain traction, get funding, whatever it is for your journey. But here on the other side, the policies you put in place, the safeguards you put in place for the data that you're collecting, all of that, this is the juicy stuff over here that is going to tank your reputation, tank the ability to make payroll, tank, insert reason to keep going. And it is extremely important to have that and be aware of it. And if you don't know where to start, a good framework that I like to use is the NIST framework, cybersecurity framework. It gives you, and again, this is the lowest, it's just recommended, right? So to go above and beyond is recommended, but it's minimal things that you should be doing. Encryption, segmenting your data, looking at access controls, annual cybersecurity awareness training. If you're not doing these things as a small business or any business, you have a problem, and there will be a problem. So it's important to take these seriously. You can see I'm very passionate about this.
No, absolutely. And it's that passion that I want anyone listening to live or listening to the replay to understand. Hey, this is real,
Yeah.
and we got to take this seriously. Like, now, if you look at my resume, I spent many years in insurance. I'm no longer a licensed insurance professional, so I don't want anyone to take this as advice. But I'm, as a person and as a professional trying to help other businesses and professionals, also don't rest assured that buying cybersecurity coverage has you fully covered. There's still due diligence that needs to happen. So if you're going to be compromised and there's a cyber threat, first thing first thing that's going to be asked is, what steps did you take, and were you following the protocols that were set out? We're just not going to cover you when you yourself didn't take care and do your due diligence, right? So it's important to understand and speak to your insurance professional that when you buy protection for cyber risks, that there's still an onus of responsibility for you as a business owner to uphold. Right?
I am so glad you brought this up. And I'm going to make the analogy of people's own home. Sometimes it relates a little bit better. You tell your insurance agent, your personal insurance agent, that you have 3 smoke alarms in your home. You are provided insurance based on the fact that you have said, you attested, I have 3 smoke alarms in my home. Your own house unfortunately burns down. Do you know how many smoke alarms you actually had that were working? 0. Do you know what your payout is going to be? Probably not much, if any, because you attested that you had 3 over here. And so it wasn't actually accurate. The same thing applies to your business. You sign up for the cyber risk, you're paying the premiums. This is a premium you're paying every single month, but you're not doing these 10 things over here, then you're throwing away money, and you're also not going to be reimbursed in case of a cyber incident. So I am aligned with you, Americo.
Fantastic. I love it when we're aligned.
We're aligned.
It just
Yes, we
makes
are.
things so much easier and believable. It brings that authenticity and that brings that credibility that everyone talks about on LinkedIn.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So I know we're reaching the top of the hour. I got one last question, and then we'll see if there's any questions from our audience. So what do you suggest people do to avoid or minimize the exposure to cyber threats?
I think if I bucket this into two sections, one from a personal level, we have to be aware of the information we're just giving out. Social media, you're giving out information about your kids, your public profile. You can make it private. So it's those things that we need to be aware of when we're posting. Can it be after vacation? Because spring break's coming up. So they're going to see so many posts of people taking these vacations or out doing things, but you're leaving the door wide open for potential scams. And then you wonder how your identity got compromised, or you wonder why somebody was impersonating you and shows up at your house that's empty. And so these sort of things, these exposure to cyber threats, you can help mitigate based off of the information you're sharing out in the first place. So I'll just leave it at that from a personal level. From a business level, it is important to, one, educate your employees, cybersecurity awareness training. And this is not a one and done, because you have to, in order to create a cyber or a security first culture, a culture where people will report suspicious activity to report the fact that they think they may have just messed up. You have to have a more of a security first mindset. I personally think I think it's important to have lunch and learns, have external speakers, have hands-on incident response training for certain groups, because every group is going to be a little bit different on how they respond. All of these things will reduce or minimize your exposure, because your entire company, not just the IT team over here, entire company is responsible for the security of your organization.
Yeah, that's great advice. I'd like to add. I know that in many times when I found myself in projects collecting and researching customer data, customer sentiment around the customer journey,
Mm-hmm.
that many times some sentiment will get brushed off. It's an outlier.
Mm,
Uh, I caution anyone who does not pay any attention to those outliers and they're looking for big trends, uh, things that are happening in quantity. It's those outliers that sometimes will catch you off guard and bite you in the rear.
that's right.
Right. So it's I can't stress enough. And to circle back to the personal piece, yeah, we live in a society where everyone is just sharing their journey, their live, and there's I'm trying to remember what his handle is. Survey Monkey? No, not Survey Monkey. That's a survey. But Jose Monkey. If you've ever followed Jose Monkey on Instagram, this Jose Monkey persona takes requests from people around the world and asks, "Can you find me Jose Monkey?" And they just do a 360 video of where they're at, and he will zero in, just going online with whatever digital tools, and he will pinpoint exactly where you were standing or the proximity of where you were standing. And that's how easy it is. When it comes to sharing information, you're sharing pictures, you got your license plate in the background when you're taking a photo, you have your address. Like, we're just not cautious enough with what we share or what we prevent from sharing. And it's scary, but this is a reality. We need to give ourselves a wake up call frequently
Right.
and
I've seen
understand.
that Jose Monkey. I'm glad you brought him up, because he'll even be like, and based off the shadows, it was about noon when you took that photo.
Yeah,
And it's like, you are looking towards the east, and that means the sun was coming in. And it's just like, what? You just, but that I was recording a video. I do quite a few educational videos on my LinkedIn and then my YouTube as well. And I was recording one, and it just so happened I was trying to get out of my car and like put something in my trunk, as to really express the I guess to reiterate the point I was trying to make about leaving personal information in your vehicle. But every time I would get out of my car, my home, because where I was parked, and then my street sign was in the back just a little bit, not noticeable, but if you would have paused, you would have able to see my cross streets. And it's like, it's already probably easy enough based off of a couple of the videos I did, but I'm like, I don't need to be showing my street sign. So I re-recorded, and kept showing my street sign the way I was parked. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this inside. Because this is the background you get. And but that has to be top of mind for us, depending on how you're showing or videoing or sharing your information.
yeah. It's we take for granted what technology has given us,
Yes.
right? And there's I probably say more pros than cons, but it's those few cons that can be detrimental to us personally, to us professionally, and to organizations. And it doesn't take much to tarnish our reputation. It doesn't take much to tarnish our personal brands. You know, it's so. Listen, this was and has been a wonderful conversation. I know there's a question that it appears that it may have been answered, but let's just ask once again just to make sure we covered it. How can entrepreneurs protect themselves before an incident occurs?
Yeah, I think what we talked about,
Yeah,
which would be from a business perspective, uh, I would look at a compliance framework, do a risk assessment and then compare it to the compliance framework that you are looking. So whether you want to start with SOC 2 or NIST cybersecurity framework, those are good places to start. Or you can, consult a third party to be able, if you don't have that team member or expertise on your team, that's what Secure Labs does. So it's an easy lift to do as an entrepreneur, to just get a snapshot to where you're at on the spectrum of cybersecurity.
That is a fantastic segue to close off our show. In terms of getting help, uh, anyone who has questions and thinks that Secure Labs might be able to answer them, I'm pretty sure Paige has a solution for you and would be more than happy to talk to your organization, whether you're a solopreneur looking to protect a small business or an enterprise looking to protect an enterprise. Now, am I right in suggesting that, or do you have a
Yes,
niche that you stick?
that is correct. And the glory of being in this industry is, if it's not something as part of our skill set, we have partners that we work with that would be better suited. We are happy to refer you to a something that suits your needs. So we definitely, at the end of the day, want you to be the most safe and secure, especially for those consumers you're trying to protect their data. And that is exactly what we will do.
Fantastic. Paige, I can't thank you enough. This was a great conversation. Hope that everyone listening to us live got as much out of it as I did. For those who are watching replays or who are going to consume this in bite-sized pieces, because I will take this conversation. We had some great questions. I'll chop them up into shorts and share them here on LinkedIn and my other social channels. If you have questions and want to reach out to Paige or myself, feel free to do so. At this time, I want to thank everyone. We're going to shut the room down and see you all next time.